Hey everyone, welcome to Barter Hordes. My name is Robert, and tonight is day 17, or the first matchup of round number 2. We're down to 16 whiskeys. We've eliminated 16. If you want to know which 16 are still in the tournament, they're listed in alphabetical order in the description box below. The matchups are purely random, so they're not in alphabetical order for the matchups. Tonight's matchup is between Dalwhinnie 15, a Highland whiskey, and Glen Scotia 15, a Campbelltown whiskey. Obviously, we've done both of these before. They've each won their first round matchups, so I'm not just going to repeat everything I said in the first video about these whiskeys, but I wanted to read you something very short from the various websites. As many of you know, I spent a lot of years writing and teaching writing, and I find the marketing materials for whiskey to be fascinating. I can't imagine in my mind a more perfect job, sitting around drinking whiskey all day and writing really poetic and clever things about it. It's probably not anything like what the real job is, but that's what I imagine it. So what I did is I went and got a little bit of the marketing copy from each of the two websites about the whiskeys. They do tell you a little bit about the tasting notes, but for the most part, there's a little bit of information and a lot of PR. So the Dalwhinnie 15, as we looked at before, is 43% alcohol by volume. It's an ex-bourbon maturation, and it's going to run you about $90. It's one of the more expensive ones. And this is what the Dalwhinnie website had to say. Smooth, aromatic heather and honey sweetness. Dalwhinnie 15 is a clean, crisp Scotch which provides a perfect introduction to the delights of single malt whiskey. Dalwhinnie is the highest and coldest distillery in Scotland and was founded at the end of the 19th century. Dalwhinnie Scotch is the only Highland whiskey to offer a combination of clean and easy drinking, malty sweet flavors with a smooth and smoky warmth. Dalwhinnie releases its full honeyed sweetness when served chilled or over ice. Don't do it. It makes the perfect gift for whiskey lovers looking for a smooth, deliciously enjoyable single malt. This one is very easy to sip. Some people like their whiskey over ice. I usually do that when the whiskey is really high proof and I just can't take it. But for these lower ABV ones, it just seems to water them down so fast that even over ice, it just wipes them right out. So I tend to drink them. I drink most of my Scotch neat. I drink the higher proof bourbon sometimes over rocks. I try it neat, and then after I, cough and die, then I put an ice cube in there. Okay, let's start with the Dalwhinnie, and then I'll read you the Glen Scotia promotional materials. And maybe they'll slow me down on the tasting. Exactly what you would expect. Sweet honey, vanilla, maybe a layer of fruit underneath there. Typical bourbon maturation, but done really well. They say there's a tiny bit of smokiness, a tiny bit of peat in there too. I don't get it in the aroma, but maybe in the taste. There's a tiny little bit of spice. It might be barrel oak spice or something like that. But there's a tiny little spice and a little bit more of the fruit flavors comes out when you taste it rather than just checking the aromas. It's very nice, gentle, almost delicate tasting, but it's very nice. Okay, the Glen Scotia, as you know, it's from Campbelltown. This is bottled at 46%, so a little bit higher ABV, and it'll only run you $70 as opposed to the $90 for the Dalwhinnie, so it's a little bit cheaper. Campbelltown's whiskey has long enjoyed a very special and long-standing relationship with bourbon and American oak casks. This traditional choice of wood complements Glen Scotia's slow fermentation and small batch process, delivering underlying balanced fruit character and sweet toffee and background spice that defines our whiskey. With only a short finish in Oloroso casks, the Glen Scotia 15 lets all of the classic regional traits shine through, delivering a true taste of Campbelltown. So it's mostly matured in bourbon, ex-bourbon barrels, and then it's finished very briefly in Oloroso sherry casks. But with a Campbelltown, you expect a little bit of the maritime influence, maybe a little bit of the saltiness, brininess. Yep. We can also detect a little bit of the sherry influence on the finishing. That's really nice. Both of these are really nice. You're going to hear me saying that a lot over the next 15 nights. All of these are pretty nice at this point in. Any that were kind of borderline entries are gone now. Now we get to the good stuff. It's all been pretty good, to be honest. The Glen Scotia has a little bit more body to it, a little bit more oiliness, probably because it's not chill filtered, whereas the Dalwhinnie is. It's got that Campbelltown edge to it, a little bit of that smoky character that you get on Campbelltown generally. It's amazing. Campbelltown used to be the whiskey capital of the world. And now there are only 3 distilleries, I think, that are active. I think there's a 4th one that's coming back online, but with only 3 active distilleries, it's hard to get your hand on any Campbelltown whiskeys. Which one do I like better is the tough part, because I like both of these just fine. Okay, this is a tough call. Both of them are terrific. I wish the Dalwhinnie were a little bit more affordable, and I wish the Glen Scotia were a little bit more findable, but I wish for a lot of things that I'm not going to get. But both of these are terrific. I will continue to patronize both distilleries. Maybe not with the 15, maybe I'll get a different bottle. I've been trying to get a taste of one of the Glen Scotia bottles for a while that I can't find here, but a friend of mine has found it and offered me a sample. So I'm looking forward to that later in the spring. But I think I'm going to move the Glen Scotia forward, which surprises me a little bit. Usually I prefer bourbon maturation over a mixture or sherry maturation. But I think the extra boost in ABV, that Campbelltown grit, that Campbelltown oomph really shines through on the Glen Scotia. And every time I try this whiskey, I like it a little bit more than I did the time before. Because I think I mentioned in my previous video, the first time I tried it, I wasn't sure I really liked it. And now I'm sure I pretty much like it. So Glen Scotia is going to move into round 3, which is going to be the quarterfinals. And Dalwhinnie is going to leave the tournament here. And tomorrow's matchup, day 18, is a banger. Springbank 10, the other Campbelltown whiskey, versus Lagavulin 16, which we just had in the final matchup of round 1, but it kind of blew its opponent away and moved into this round pretty easily. So that's going to be a big matchup tomorrow. Okay, let me know what you think of these. I've given the impression probably over the last 17 days that all I drink is Scotch, and that's not true. I probably drink Scotch about 60% of the time, maybe 65% of the time. But I started as a bourbon drinker first, and then added some other whiskeys. I picked up some ryes, and I think the next thing I tried out was Irish whiskeys. I still drink those. I have since gone into Japanese whiskey and Indian whiskey, and so I like it all. I really do. I haven't found a category of whiskey that I dislike. Some bottles I like better than others, but I like all the different styles of whiskey. So when this tournament's over, I'm not suddenly, going to abandon all those other whiskeys. They'll come back into the rotation. But for the month of March, it's all Scotch all the time. All right, everybody, have a good evening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.